My family kicked me out after I paid their debts for 2 years to give my room to my brother. But when I discovered they took out a $50,000 mortgage for him, I bought the house and turned them into my tenants. Now my brother is evicted and my parents live under my rules. I'm 27 years old. I work in accounting. And like a year ago, I made a decision that basically blew up my family. But honestly, it was the best thing I could have done. I still can't believe all this actually happened, because when I was a kid, I never imagined things would end up like this. I guess I should start from the beginning. When I was little and started realizing that in my house there was a favorite child, and that child definitely wasn't me. Trevor is my older brother. He's like 4 years older than me, and for as long as I can remember, my parents treated him like he was some kind of gift from heaven. I'm not exaggerating, seriously. Every single thing Trevor did was amazing. Every achievement of his was cause for celebration, and I just existed in the background. When Trevor got good grades, my parents would make a special dinner and congratulate him for days. Trevor played soccer in school, and my parents went to every game, screamed his name, took pictures, bought jerseys with his number. I tried being on the debate team, and my mom told me that wasn't as important, that besides, debates were on the same days as Trevor's games, and she couldn't be in two places at once. You know what I mean? I grew up with this constant feeling that no matter how well I did things, it was never going to be enough to get their attention. And the worst part is that Trevor wasn't even mean to me. Like, he wasn't the typical abusive older brother. He just lived his life being the center of my parents' universe, and probably didn't even realize how unbalanced everything was. My parents, especially my mom, adored him in a way that was honestly sick. My dad was quieter about everything, but he didn't do anything to balance things out either. You know, he just went along with whatever my mom said. When Trevor graduated from college, my parents bought him a car. A brand new Honda Accord. Like $25,000. When I graduated 2 years later, they gave me $500 and told me it was time to be independent. At that moment, I was like 22 years old, and honestly, I was already so used to the different treatment that it didn't even surprise me. It just hurt. But it was a familiar hurt, you know? Like something I had already learned to live with. After college, Trevor moved to Austin with his girlfriend Madison, who was now his wife. He got a job at some tech company or whatever and basically forgot he had family in North Carolina. He'd call like once a month, always talking about how amazing his life was, how well he was doing, how happy Madison was. My parents ate it all up. My mom would sigh every time the calls ended and say things like, "Oh, my Trevor is living his best life. I'm so proud." Meanwhile, I had stayed home after graduating because, well, I didn't have much money saved, and honestly, my parents suggested it. My mom told me, "Why don't you stay here for a while you save? Up? We can help each other out." My parents had just retired. My dad from a manufacturing plant and my mom from being a secretary at a school, and their pensions weren't exactly abundant. The house was paid off. Yeah. They'd been living there for like 30 years, a 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood, but nothing fancy. The arrangement was that I'd pay the utility bills, help with grocery expenses, and they wouldn't charge me rent. Sounded fair, I guess. But then it started changing. Like 6 months into living there, my mom started asking me to pay for more things, like the cable bill, like they needed help with the car insurance, like we had to fix the roof. And I paid. Because I had a decent job at an accounting firm and I could do it. And besides, I felt like I was finally contributing to the family in a way they valued. It was like I was finally doing something that mattered. You know what I mean? For the first time in my life, my parents needed me. And that felt good in a sad and pathetic way. 2 years went by like that. I basically paid for everything in that house, except the property taxes, which came out of my dad's pension. I paid electricity, water, gas, internet, cable, phone, groceries, repairs, everything. My parents lived comfortably on their pensions because I covered all the expenses. And my mom told me all the time, "When we're gone, this house is going to be yours. You're taking such good care of us, Mijo. Someday all this will be yours." The house was worth like $180,000. Nothing spectacular, but it wasn't nothing either. And I started seeing it as an investment, you know, like I was paying for my future house. Trevor didn't send a single penny. He'd call on Christmas, on my parents' birthdays, and that was it. He didn't even come when my dad had a little health issue, an infection that left him in the hospital for a week. Madison posted photos on social media of their trips to Mexico, to California, to wherever else, but sending even $100 to help with Dad's medical expenses. That was apparently too much to ask. Things started getting weird like a year and a half ago. My mom began making strange comments about how maybe I should look for my own place. Like, "You've been living here for quite a while now. Don't you think it's time to become independent?" And I'd be like, "What? I'm literally paying for everything in this house, and you're telling me to leave?" But she'd say it subtly, never directly, always like casual suggestions that I tried to ignore. Then Trevor and Madison started having problems. I don't know exactly what happened, but from what I understood from the phone conversations I overheard, Madison was unhappy in Austin. She missed her family who lived around here, in North Carolina, and wanted to come back. And suddenly my mom was having really long conversations with Trevor, 2-hour calls that ended with her crying and saying things like, "My poor son is going through such a difficult time, he needs his family." One day, I was like 25 years old at that point. My mom sat me down in the kitchen and said, we needed to talk. She had that serious face she'd put on when she was going to ask me for something big. She told me, "Trevor and Madison are thinking about moving back to North Carolina. They need a place to stay while they get established again, and well, this house has 3 bedrooms." I immediately knew where this was going. I said, "Are you asking me to leave so Trevor can live here?" And she did that thing she always did, like twisting things so I'd be the bad guy. She told me, "It's not that I'm asking you to leave. It's just that Trevor is in a difficult situation and needs help, and you're already an independent adult who can take care of himself." Independent adult. That's funny, right? The independent adult who's been paying all their bills for 2 years? But anyway, I told them I'd think about it, and over the next few weeks, the pressure increased. My mom started making more direct comments, like it was time for me to have my own space, that Trevor really needed family help, that they as parents had to be there for both their children. My dad, as always, didn't say anything, just nodded along with what my mom said and avoided my gaze. What really convinced me that the situation was crazy was when I asked my mom, "And who's going to pay the bills if I leave? Because you know that without my help you can't cover everything." And she, with the straightest face in the world, told me, "Well, we thought you could continue helping us with that while Trevor gets established." I mean, they wanted me to leave the house but continue paying all the bills so Trevor could live there for free. Can you believe it? They were literally asking me to pay for my brother to live in what was supposed to be my house someday. I told them no. I told them that was completely unfair, and I wasn't going to do it. My mom cried, told me I was selfish, that I didn't understand how hard it was to be a parent and have to see a child suffering. My dad finally spoke up and said, they were just asking me to be understanding with my brother, that family supports each other. And I told them, where was Trevor when you needed me? Where was he when Dad was in the hospital? Where has he been for the last 2 years while I've been paying for everything? But it didn't matter. They had already made their decision. They gave me a month to leave. 1 month. After 2 years of paying for everything, of taking care of them, of being there when they needed me, they gave me 30 days to find an apartment and get out. Trevor and Madison were going to arrive in 6 weeks, and they needed me gone by then. The conversation ended with my mom saying, we hope you'll continue helping us with the bills. You know, your dad and I can't cover everything. And in that moment, something inside me just broke. I spent that month looking for an apartment. Found a small one like 20 minutes away. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. I didn't tell my parents when exactly I was going to move, just that I was looking for a place. I hired a moving company for 1 night, literally at midnight, when my parents were asleep. I took out all my stuff, all my furniture, because I had bought furniture for my room and for the living room with my own money, everything. The next morning my parents woke up and I was gone. But here comes the important part. That same day I called all the utility companies and canceled everything. Electricity, water, gas, internet, cable, everything that was in my name or that I was paying for. I sent a text message to my parents that basically said, "You asked me to leave, so I left. I hope Trevor can help you with the bills now." And I blocked them. I blocked my mom, my dad, and while I was at it, I also blocked Trevor even though he didn't even know any of this was happening yet. The first few days were weird, honestly. I felt free but also guilty, no? Like, part of me knew I had done the right thing, but another part still felt like maybe I was being too harsh. But then, the contact attempts started. My parents called my work. They couldn't call me because I had blocked them. They tried sending people to my new apartment. My mom asked her cousin, Aunt Clara, to contact me. And Aunt Clara called me all indignant, saying, how could I do this to my parents? That they were elderly, that I was leaving them without basic services, that it was shameful. I told Aunt Clara exactly what had happened. How they had used me for 2 years and then kicked me out so Trevor could live for free. And she was like, well, yeah, but they're still your parents. That mentality that parents can do whatever and children have to put up with everything because it's family has always seemed like bullshit to me. Honestly. I told her I wasn't going to change my mind and that if she wanted to help my parents, she could send them money herself. I hung up and blocked her too. Like 3 months went by. I was living my life, working, paying my rent, being truly independent for the first time. I didn't know anything about my family, and honestly, I was fine with that. Until one day, Aunt Clara showed up at my work. I don't know how she knew where I worked. Probably my parents told her. She waited for me in the parking lot, and when I came out, she intercepted me. I was just going to leave, but she yelled, I need to talk to you about something your parents did to you, something you don't know. That stopped me. I told her she had 5 minutes. She told me that my parents had taken out a second mortgage on the house like 3 years ago. Like, what? The house was paid off? Why would they take out a mortgage? Aunt Clara explained that they had taken out like $50,000 to help Trevor and Madison when they had financial problems in Austin. Apparently, Trevor had lost his job or something like that, didn't do well with an investment. I don't know exactly, but the point is he needed money, and my parents took out a second mortgage to help him. And here comes the truly sick part. The monthly payments on that second mortgage were like $600. I had been paying the house bills, which normally added up to like $400 or $500 a month. But over the last 2 years, my parents had been asking me to pay for extra things, like repairs, like this, like that. Until I was basically giving them like $800 to $900 a month, I was paying the second mortgage they took out for Trevor without even knowing it. I just stood there in the parking lot processing this. Aunt Clara kept talking, saying that's why my parents needed me to keep paying even after I left, because without my money they couldn't cover the mortgage. And that's why they wanted Trevor to live there for free, because technically he had already received his share with the $50,000. The logic was insane. But at the same time, everything was starting to make sense, you know what I mean? I asked her why she was telling me this. She said it was because now my parents were really in trouble, that 3 months had gone by without being able to pay the mortgage, that the bank was threatening them with foreclosure, and that Trevor couldn't help them because he had already spent all the money, and besides, he had just arrived in North Carolina and was unemployed. Basically, Aunt Clara wanted me to go back to helping them. I told her to go to hell, but more politely, and I left. That night I couldn't sleep. I was angry, obviously, but there was also a part of me that was like, did they really use me like that? Was I really paying for 2 years for a debt they took out to help the favorite son? It was so twisted it almost didn't seem real. The next morning, I went to the bank, where my parents had the mortgage. I still had old papers with the bank's name from when I used to run errands for them, and I went to ask. The lady at the bank was super nice. I explained the situation to her, told her I had been living with my parents and paying bills, but didn't know anything about a second mortgage. She looked in the system and confirmed everything. Second mortgage, taken out 3 years ago for $50,000, monthly payments of $600 and something, and sure enough, 3 months of overdue payments. The house was in the foreclosure process. They were going to lose it in about 4 months if they didn't catch up. This is where I made a decision that I know sounds horrible, but in the moment, seemed perfectly fair to me. I asked the bank lady what would happen if I paid everything that was overdue and caught up on the payments. She said that would stop the foreclosure. Then I asked her, and what if I wanted to refinance the mortgage in my name? Basically, could I take control of the debt if I had the consent of the current owners? The thing is complicated legally, but the short version is yes. If my parents signed the right papers, the house could be transferred to my name. I would pay everything they owed, take over the mortgage, and in exchange, the property would be mine. The lady gave me information about how it would all work, and I left there with a plan. I unblocked my mom's number and called her. She answered crying, saying my name like it was a miracle that I was calling her. I told her, I know about the second mortgage. There was silence. Then she started trying to explain herself, that they had to help Trevor, that he was their son and was suffering, that they were going to tell me but never found the right moment. I cut her off and told her, the bank told me you're going to lose the house in a few months. More silence. Then I made my offer. I told her, I'm going to pay everything you owe and I'm going to take over the mortgage, but only if you transfer the house to my name. The house is going to be legally mine, and you're going to live there as tenants. You're going to pay your share of the utility bills, and if at any point you can't or don't want to follow my rules, you leave. My mom started screaming about how could I ask them for that it was their house, that they had lived there for 30 years, that it wasn't fair. I told her, you used me for 2 years to pay a debt you took out for Trevor. You kicked me out of the house so he could live for free. And now you're about to lose everything. This is my offer, take it or leave it, but I'm not going to help you any other way. And I hung up. My dad called me 2 days later. He never called. It was always my mom who handled everything, so I knew things were really desperate. He talked to me calmly, without my mom's drama, and told me, would you really do that? Would you really take the house away from us? I told him, I'm not taking anything from you. I'm saving the house you're about to lose. But I'm not going to do it. So Trevor has somewhere to live for free. Or so you can keep treating me like the son who doesn't matter. If it's going to be my house, it's going to be on my terms. There was a long pause and then he said, let me talk to your mom. We hung up, and I didn't hear anything for a week. I kept going with my life, honestly prepared for them to say no and lose the house. But then my mom called me, with a defeated voice, and said they accepted, that they would sign the papers, that they would do whatever was necessary not to lose the house. The process took like 2 months. Lawyers, bank, papers, signatures. My parents looked miserable every time we met to sign something. Trevor was living with them at that point, and when he found out what was happening, he sent me a long message, he didn't have him blocked at that point, saying I was a horrible brother, that I was taking advantage of our parents' situation, that he would never do something like that to me. I responded, with the bank statement of the second mortgage they had taken out for him and told him, you already received your share of the inheritance, I'm claiming mine. I blocked him after that. When the transfer was finally completed, the house was legally mine. I was the owner. My parents were tenants. The first thing I did was establish rules. I told them they could stay, but they had to pay their share of the utility bills. No rent because honestly, I didn't need their money. I just needed them to be responsible. And most importantly, Trevor didn't live for free. If he was going to stay there, he paid rent or he left. My mom cried. My dad looked defeated, but they signed a basic agreement I had made with a lawyer. Trevor, on the other hand, got furious. He told me he wasn't going to pay me rent, that this was his parents' house, not mine, that I had no right. I told him he had exactly 30 days to start paying or I'd start the eviction process. Yeah, I was going to evict my own brother, and I didn't feel bad about it. Trevor didn't pay. The 30 days passed and he was still there, acting like nothing. So I started the eviction process. It was super awkward because obviously my parents were in the middle, trying to convince me to give him more time, that he was looking for work, that Madison was also looking, that it was difficult. I told them that wasn't my problem, that Trevor had gotten $50,000 of his inheritance and I wasn't going to subsidize his life too. The legal process took like 6 weeks. Trevor finally left 2 days before the sheriff was going to physically remove him. He left dramatically, saying that someday I was going to regret doing this to my family, that I had destroyed everything for money, that Mom and Dad would never forgive me. My parents cried, especially my mom, who hugged Trevor at the door like I was sending him to war instead of just forcing him to be a responsible adult. The interesting thing is, what happened after Trevor left? Madison left him like 3 months later. Apparently, she had been waiting to see if Trevor was going to get a job and get established, but he basically stayed at a friend's apartment doing nothing, waiting for my parents or me or someone to rescue him again. Madison got tired, left, started her own life, and now, from what I hear, she's engaged to someone else. Trevor lives alone somewhere, has a part-time job doing something, I don't know exactly what, and he barely talks to my parents. And my parents, well, they're still living in the house. My house now, paying their bills, following the rules. My mom still treats me differently, still makes comments about Trevor when we talk, but she doesn't have the power she used to have. She can't manipulate me with promises of inheritance or with the emotional blackmail of family, because I don't depend on them for anything anymore, and they now depend on me for everything. Do I feel bad about how things turned out? Honestly, no. Sometimes I think maybe I was too harsh, that maybe I should have handled things differently. But then I remember that I spent 2 years paying for everything while they used me to keep afloat, a debt they took out for Trevor. I remember how they kicked me out without thinking twice so he could live for free. And I don't feel bad. Last week I went to the house to check on some repairs that needed to be done on the roof. My mom offered me coffee. We talked about superficial things, about the weather, about her health, about nothing important. Before I left, she said, "Have you heard anything from Trevor?" I told her no. She sighed and said, "I miss when we were a real family." And I just thought, we were a real family when Trevor was the center of the universe and I was invisible. But I didn't say anything. I just said goodbye and went to my apartment, to my life, where for the first time I'm more than just the forgotten son who pays the bills.